We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Men's Lacrosse Through the Decades. Tonight we have the decades of the 2000s, and we've got some great guests lined up for you. Joining head coach Frank Federica and one of our current players, Matt Barkauskas, who's a junior midfielder from Mountain Lakes, New Jersey. Well, I want to welcome you all to tonight's session. I want to thank Geisinger as our sponsor. Geisinger does a great job, not only for our student athletes here at Bucknell, but for the entire surrounding community, especially throughout the pandemic and being on the front lines. They've been absolutely great, so we thank Geisinger. My name's Todd Newcomb. I'm going to introduce our guests, and as I said, we've got a great group, and the list of honors for these guys goes on and on, so coaches may take a second for me to get through all this, but here we go. So our first guest is from the class of 2003, and that's Justin Sussman. Justin was the team captain in 2003. He ranks second on the career goals against average chart at 7.81. He ranks fourth with a career save percentage of .628. He ranks fourth in Bucknell history with 572 career saves. He was an All-Patriot League second team selection in 2001. He was an All-Patriot League first team selection and the Patriot League Defensive Player of the Year in both 2002 and 2003. He was a Division I honorable mention All-American in 2003. He was a USILA North-South All-Star Game participant in 2003. He was the Patriot League Scholar Athlete of the Year for men's lacrosse in that year as well. He won the Bison Club Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. He was selected in the fourth round of the 2004 supplemental draft by Baltimore and in the 11th round of the 2006 supplemental draft by Philadelphia. He was elected to the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2014. Our next guest from the class of 2005 is Chris Cara. Chris was the team captain in 2005. He owns a share of the school record for points in a single game with 11, which he accomplished against Lafayette in 2004. He is a school record holder for career points with 249. He ranks second on the career charts for goals with 138 and fourth in assists with 111. He led the nation in scoring as a junior with 78 points. He was an All-Patriot League second team selection and a Patriot League Rookie of the Year in 2002. He was an All-Patriot League first team selection in 2003, 2004, and 2005. He was also the Patriot League Offensive Player of the Year in both 2004 and 2005. He was a Division I honorable mention All-American in 2004 and a third team selection in 2005. He also played in the USIL North-South All-Star Game in 2005. He won the Christy Mathewson Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. He was selected in the third round of the Major League Lacrosse draft by Long Island in 2005, and he was elected to the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2015. Our next guest from the class of 2007 is Paul Stansik. Paul was a team captain in 2007. He was a COSIDA Academic All-District selection in that year as well, and he was selected in the seventh round of the supplemental draft by Chicago in 2009. And our final guest from the class of 2010 is Austin Winter. Austin was the team captain in 2010. He ranks fifth on the career assist chart with 117 and fifth on the career points list with 194. He was an All-Patriot League first team selection all 4 years, 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2010. He was the Patriot League Rookie of the Year in 2007. He was a Division I honorable mention All-American in 2008, 2009, and 2010. He also played in the USIL North-South All-Star Game, and he won the Bradley Tufts Award at the Senior Awards Dinner. So, Coach, it's an outstanding group. I'm going to turn it over to you and Matt.
All right. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, those are some tremendous talent there. And, I can go on and on about watching those guys play for 4 years and being really, really proud, but also watching them in high school and watching them grow into the men that they are today. So, and a little side note too, Austin Winters, you might wonder why Austin Winter chose Bucknell. I think one of the reasons was his father was on the staff helping Coach Jameson back in the day, and I'm not sure exactly what year that was, Austin. I know I wasn't here for it, but do you remember that?
I think it was around 76, 77. The jerseys were pretty tight and the shorts were really short. But there were couches on the sides of the field, so it was pretty wild to see back then.
Yeah, and we got a little Mountain Lakes connection here too with you and Matty Barkauskas.
You got to keep that rolling.
Which is also nice, yeah. All right, so I'm going to get it started, gentlemen. I'm going to ask a couple questions, and then Matty B over here is going to ask you a question, and I'll ask you a couple more. And then what we're going to do is I'll ask a question, and then each one of you will answer that question, and then we'll move on to the next question. And then I'll give you the order. So we're going to just start with just basically you guys updating us on your life, your career, your family, just things that are going on, what's happened since you left Bucknell. And we'll start with the elder statesman there. Suss, why don't you take this one first?
Yeah, sure. Great to see everyone. And yeah, you're right. Like just going over those accolades for this crew, it's pretty amazing what everyone accomplished. And it's good to be on here with everyone and good to see some familiar faces. So I, like I said, I graduated in 03, spent some time in New York, and then moved up to Boston where I live now. I live in Wellesley, Massachusetts, which is a suburb right outside of Boston. I lived there with my wife, Amy, and our three boys, Jack, Will, and Max. 8, 5, actually, yeah, one just turned 5 and 2. So, you know, three maniacs, as I like to call them. We have a good time here. And I work for an investment management firm, medium-sized, and partner there, and chief operating officer and a portfolio manager. So keep my hands busy with the kids. I'm expecting, you know, scholarship offers at some point in the next 10 years from Bucknell, hopefully. And, you know, obviously they're all going to play goalie. So I'm excited about that. So yeah, like I said, really, really appreciate you guys having me on.
That's going to be tough to pull off. You might want to have an attackman, a defenseman, and a goalie.
If they have my genes, they're playing goalie, Coach Beck. You know they're not gonna make it in the field.
The duck feet just won't cut it as a midfielder. That's
Exactly.
All right, so let's just keep continuing in the order of age. So Chris, Cara, why don't you go next?
Hey guys, thanks so much, Fed. This is awesome. I really appreciate you guys organizing this, even though I'm not cleanly shaven, so apologies for that. So graduated in 2005, actually married a Bucknellian, so Lindsay is my wife. She was Lindsay Amory at the time, but I'm sure you remember her. We've been married for it was 10 years, so this is our 10-year anniversary this year. We have a 5-year-old daughter who you just saw, and a 2-year-old son, Wyatt, who I'm expecting to play lacrosse, so we'll see how that goes. We live in New York, but with COVID, we've been kind of back and forth, primarily in Vermont. We actually just claimed residency in Vermont, so my daughter is going to be going to kindergarten in Vermont this year, which is a little strange. We're in New York today and tomorrow just to like catch up, collect some things and that sort of thing over the next few days. But then in terms of jobs, I work at Spotify. I'm in sales. I run a sales team there. I've been doing that for a long time. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on here, and this is exciting.
Great, thank you. All right, Paul.
Yeah, good to see you guys. This is very cool. Thank you for putting this on and having me be a part of it. You might see my dog wander in here. No kids yet, but he gets treated better than most human children. So if he joins us, don't be surprised. I'm here in Chicago. I live here in downtown with my wife. After Bucknell, bounced around a little bit, decided to go back to business school after working for a few years. Ended up going to Wharton at UPenn. Did a couple years of strategy consulting, and now I work for a private equity fund here in Chicago doing operations. So I focus on everything talent. So when we buy a company, I work with the senior leadership team and all their executives to build a great culture, build a great senior executive team, and put the right tools and processes in to grow a great company and make a great investment. So that's what we're doing today. Great.
All right, Austin.
Yeah, just to reiterate everyone else's thoughts, thanks again for having us and putting this together. This is really great. I haven't really left New Jersey since I graduated. I really can't. It's just one of those things. So I'm in Hoboken, New Jersey, work in Manhattan, or did work in Manhattan, still just at home, work for BTIG, which is a global financial services company. And I trade futures and commodities for them, and have been doing that for over 8 years now. So it's pretty wild. Married a girl who's from New Jersey, but she went to University of Florida, so still blue and orange. And yesterday actually celebrated my daughter's first birthday. So it's pretty wild, and things are moving fast. So it's been fun.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for the update, gentlemen. It's great to have you on. We'll get right to the meat of this thing now and put the pressure on you guys. So take us back to your recruitment and the recruitment process from Bucknell and what you remember about that. And again, we'll start with Suss here.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story. I mean, you know, I think you know it pretty well. You know, I was in love with Bucknell, you know, from the first time I stepped foot on campus. But even actually before that, it's kind of interesting. So when I was going through my recruiting process and just thinking about schools, it was right around the time, I think it was the '96 season, where you know, Bucknell had an undefeated team. That was '96, right? And then you know, didn't end up making it to the national tournament. And I've always kind of seen myself as an underdog in a way, and just kind of, you know, the story about that happening to the Bucknell team, and seeing that picture where they're all frowning and Coach Jay's standing there after they found out they didn't make it in, it kind of resonated with me. And you know, from that point on, you know, I've talked to my dad about it, and you know, Bucknell was where I wanted to go as soon as I figured out I had a chance to play Division I lacrosse. You know, I wish I could say it was reciprocal at the same time. I think I was recruited by Bucknell, but I was not the top recruit. And so I spent some time, you know, kind of figuring out what my role would be and where I'd want to go. And I took a recruiting trip to Bucknell, and it only kind of exacerbated or you know, like, you know, made me want to be there even more. But I think there was another goalie in mind from Bucknell, and it turns out that I actually had committed to Lehigh. And, you know, I think over a lot of conversations with Coach Fed and Coach Jameson, I made it pretty obvious that, you know, Bucknell was where I really wanted to go. And if there was a spot, if they wanted me, I was ready to make that move. And it wasn't until actually June, you know, of that, you know, coming up year that I got a call. I think it was from you, Fed, actually, you know, telling me that you know, that you guys wanted me, and you were ready to commit and ready to have me on the team. And so, like I said, it was probably around June or July where I eventually had to tell McCluskey at Lehigh, who was the coach then, that I wasn't going to Lehigh anymore and I was going to Bucknell, and that didn't go over so well, as you can imagine. But it was the best decision I ever made, or one of the best decisions. I don't want my wife to hear that. So, eventually, you know, came in, and, you know, like I said, it was the perfect fit for me. I was confident that I could come in and, you know, once I was part of a team, kind of make my presence felt, and, you know, the rest was history after that.
Yeah, well, we're really glad that you ended up coming to Bucknell, and that you stayed passionate about Bucknell through a very tough recruiting process. We always knew you were great, and I was just personally really happy that it worked out where you were able to, you know, get in, and then you chose to come as late as it was. So that was
Thanks.
huge for the program moving forward. Let's go right to Chris Cara next.
So I just want to say thank you for getting Suss in, because I couldn't deal with that chirping if he was at Lehigh.
Oh, man.
So my recruiting was a little different. I still am super undersized. And so I think I was overall, like, I didn't really know that I had the opportunity to play Division I. I didn't think I was going to be going to play Division I, just because of all the feedback I was getting from most of the coaches. And I'm forgetting on the specific coach right now, but I feel like it was one of the guys that got in trouble at Princeton over the last few years. But anyway, it was the Empire State tryouts, in which I didn't even make the team, but I think it was Jay, who was there, just kind of like recognized me, you know, playing throughout tryouts. And he came up to me, we had a conversation. Then all of a sudden I started getting letters from you guys, and I was like, wait, maybe this is serious. And of course, my mom, she had cassette tapes or VHS tapes of my recruiting. Sent them to every single school that we could ever think about in terms of where I would go to school. And then for, whatever reason, Jay believed in me as a kid, an undersized kid that was a little scrappy, needed to refine some skills, but had that athleticism to just get it done. And that's, in my mind, how it all happened. I looked at a bunch of different schools, but Bucknell, from an academic standpoint and athletic standpoint, just was top notch. And I'm lucky to have had the opportunity to go to school at Bucknell and to build the teammates and the bonds, the connections that we built over time. I mean, it's unparalleled. I feel like you look at some other people that went to different schools and you just can't replace what we had. So I'm extremely grateful and extremely lucky that that's how it happened.
Awesome. All right, Austin Winter, take it away.
Yeah, I'd say my recruiting was a little bit more old school. I never played on the traditional summer league teams, and that's usually where you've been seen. I played 3 sports in high school. I was always very, very busy, and like my summers kind of reflected that. But then, I did have the opportunity to go down to Blue Chip Camp down in McDonough School, Maryland, and that's where I was pretty much seen. I scored a lot of goals when I was there, and my team that I was on ultimately won the championship. So I was seen by a lot of the best coaches throughout the whole time, right up to the end. And what's funny about that was down there, I was more of a crease finisher because I was playing with another guy who was a feeder and he couldn't really do much else than that. And so I knew what he was looking for. So I played off of him. So yeah, I got recruited as a crease finisher after that, which is again, funny because I'm a feeder. And so then I narrowed it down to 3 schools. I always wanted to go to Princeton. It was just, I grew up in the 90s era. They were the legendary New Jersey team. Always wanted to go that. Bill Tierney was very frank with me, said, sorry, no. Notre Dame was also on the list. I was close to them, but they were giving another player a full ride that year. So that also didn't really sit well with me. And then Bucknell, they came and visited me at my house. And I think that was one of the first ever home visits they've ever done. They just told me I was going to be their top recruit, and I think it was Coach Fed's first recruiting class. And that meant the world to me. I went and visited, stayed with fellow Mountain Lakes alum Mark Lane. His brother Nick Lane was also on my recruiting trip. So after that, I decided to stay. So I committed soon after.
That's awesome. I remember, Austin, waiting for Princeton's decision on you. I was holding my breath, and I'd watched you play. I followed you around in the summer, and I watched to see if Princeton was watching, and they weren't there. I was like, oh, good. And then there was one game where they were there, and you were going off. I was like, oh man, we're gonna lose into Princeton, because you said you wanted to go to Princeton, but they ended up not offering you. Thank God, and we got you to come to Bucknell. That was great. I'll never forget how that all unfolded. And then that house visit was our first house visit. And I remember seeing a little basketball court in one of instead of a formal dining room at the Winters, they have like a sports room. And there was a basket that you could dunk on and some other stuff there. It was pretty awesome. But that's typical Mountain Lakes family right there. Right, Matt?
Yeah, 100%. That sounds about right.
Yeah. All right, let's go, Stansik. Bring it home, buddy.
Man, I had a bit of a different experience. So I wasn't sifting through a lot of, letters and taking a bunch of phone calls. I started playing the game pretty late, so I didn't pick up a stick till like freshman year of high school, but fell in love with the game, was lucky enough to go to a couple of the recruiting camps where pretty much everybody was a better player than I was. And so when Coach Jay called me, part of me thought it was a prank call, and I had not really heard of Bucknell very much before that. But I came out for an official visit, met Coach Jay, met Coach Fed, fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the team. And I still remember driving with my dad up Route 15 off of campus, and I just said, this is where I'm going. And he was like, don't you want to think about it? And I said, I have thought about it. This is the spot. So I was lucky enough that one school wanted me in D1, and it turned out to be the exact right place for me, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's awesome. All right, let's let Matt Barkauskas get involved here. Matt, why don't you ask these guys one of the questions that you wanted to ask them now?
Well, first of all, I know you have all of a lot to do, so I appreciate you taking the time to let me ask you questions. And I know in this COVID era, I feel like we're looking at a screen a lot, so hopefully it's an enjoyable little bit. So one question I have is, what advice would you give me or any of the other players in our program today about the college lacrosse experience at Bucknell?
Yep, and we'll start with Paul Stansik on this one. We'll go in reverse order on this round.
Oh man, a lot of pressure. I mean, part of me says to just recognize that it goes really fast, because it is kind of crazy being on this call with guys that I played with, and it feels like we played with each other a couple weeks ago, and it's actually been much longer than that, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I mean, if you recognize that it's going to be over someday, and you're very intentional with how you spend your time and how much you invest in this experience, in this chapter of your life, I think it's just about getting the most out of it and investing in the guys that you're next to on that team, because they truly are going to be your friends, your groomsmen. Your kids are going to grow up together. You're going to be close for the rest of your lives. And so when you have that chance to be together and to work on something together and build something together, just take advantage of it. It's easy to get distracted from that, but try to pull yourself back whenever you can. I think I did a decent job of that, but everybody can do it a little bit better if they just focus on it. That's where I'd go, I think.
It's awesome. All right, Austin Winter.
Yeah, I'd reiterate what Paul said. I'm sure it's cliche at this point from everyone you hear, but it's like kind of like Billy Madison, don't leave Miss Lippy's class. Don't do it. Don't take this time for granted. You really are with your best friends. I'd say they're more like brothers. We hug each other when we see each other. I'm not sure we're going to hug each other now in this COVID world, but that's the type of relationship I have with these guys. And then really just like get back to what made you love lacrosse in the first place. I used to get to practice 30 minutes early, not because I wanted to get better, but because that reminded me of playing in the backyards of mountain lakes with all my friends. And so I'd recruit other guys to do that. Like that was the only time we got shooting reps in practice, but that's besides the point. But just get back to what made you love the game first, and just understand how lucky you are to be playing Division I lacrosse at an awesome college like Bucknell.
Thank you. All right, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, to reiterate both of what you guys just said, have fun. I feel like, you can get caught up in the day-to-day, waking up at 6, going to bed at midnight or whatever, but just take time to embrace lacrosse, but also your life personally. I think you have to split the two as well. Like, make sure you're doing your homework, make sure you're doing all your work, make sure you go to practice, make sure you run, make sure you lift, all of those things. But also enjoy yourself at school. Like, school's meant to be a good time. I know it's a little different right now with COVID. But I would just say, like, my biggest thing is, like, just have fun.
Awesome. All right, Suss.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still wake up in the middle of the night and have dreams about lacrosse games that we were playing in, and goals that I let in, and mistakes that I made. So, I mean, I would tell you, like, exactly what Paul and Austin and Chris are saying. It goes by so fast, and then someday you're 40 years old like me, and you're like thinking, wow, like I was just playing Division I lacrosse 3 years ago. No, it's been 17 years now. And so it really is a special moment, and something that you're going to be telling your kids and your grandkids and, your whole family about for the rest of your life. So embrace it. Take mental pictures of where you are and memories that you're making, and embrace the whole thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, I'm going to go to question number 3 here for us. All of you except for Austin played for legendary coach Sid Jamison. Can you share Coach Jay's story, and what kind of impact did he have on you as a player and as a person? And then Austin, I guess we'll ask you if you have a favorite Coach Fed story at the end of that. So we'll start with we'll go right with Suss on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of sayings. I mean, there's parts of Coach Jay that, when my crew of 10, that all went to school together, we still talk about. Anytime we go to a restaurant, we talk about getting 2 soups. It's just all.
Keep them coming, Sass. Keep them coming.
The happy day in the valley. Just him screaming at Sanders to not go to the goal and pass the ball a little bit more. So, kinds of stuff. But, Coach Jay is a special person and a special figure in lacrosse history. And so, even during recruiting and learning about that, I mean, he made a huge impression on me, just the love of the game and what it means to him. If I'm going to go specific stories, and I was talking about this with some of my buddies today, I don't know if you remember the scrimmage down in Duke where we were scrimmaging Hopkins, and it was our sophomore year. We had a really good team, and we're playing against a really good Hopkins team, and halfway in, I guess the ball went out. I forget exactly what happened, but the ref got the call wrong in our favor. And, Coach Jay blew his own whistle in the middle of the game, ran out on the field, and goes to the ref. He's like, "You got to get this right, man. Come on. It's their ball. It's going out." So, I mean, it's just something that you probably never have seen in the middle of a scrimmage or between 2 top D1 teams. Somebody, a coach coming out with his whistle and calling the play dead in the middle of the game. But that was Coach Jay. I mean, he and everyone respected it. Coach Petramala staying on the field going, yeah, you're right. Coach Jameson says stop the play, give the ball back to us. We're good. I mean, obviously the ball went back to them, so he's happy about it. But it was just, he was a revered character and figure in lacrosse. And, myself and Chris and Paul, to a certain extent, we were just lucky to be part of that. And, there's always stories and there's always sayings, as I said, but, he was a very special person to me and somebody who will be with me for forever.
Awesome. Paul, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I can remember waiting outside Coach Jay's office on my official visit where I'm going to meet him in person for the first time. And he opens his door and he says, "Stansik, baby doll, come on in." And I walk in, I'm super nervous, not really sure how to approach this given this was my only official visit. And he stops me in the door of his office. He says, "Hold it right there." And then I can tell that he's looking at the door and at me and just back and forth kind of checking on something. And he's like, "All right, come in, have a seat." And I was confused and I asked him, what was that about? It looked like you were kind of looking at something and looking at me and all that. And he's like, he pointed out there was a notch cut in the door of his office. And you guys know Coach Jay likes tall defensemen. And so he literally built a ruler into the room that he did his job from so he could measure close defensemen and make sure they were up to standard. So, we had great defensemen that were a little bit shorter than that. Billy Hare from a couple years younger than me comes to mind, a guy that would just wreck people who was maybe 6 foot. But the guy knew what worked and he measured against what worked, and he kept that in mind at all times. And honestly, that's a lesson that I tell people in our portfolios when we're talking about operational excellence and doing business the right way. But seeing it in person was, I think, indicative of who he was. It was kind of a quirky but practical measuring stick for him. And it's something I remember and use to this day, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Funny. Chris.
Yeah. So that a baby, 8, all the isms that Jay had or
8
heard. 8 was my favorite. And if nobody knows what that is, it's fine. I just think he did a really good job of keeping things simple and basic. Our plays, we had plays, whiz with a back, all these different plays that we could score over and over and over again in practice, maybe less in practice, but in games. And the teams knew they were coming and they knew who it was going to. They knew I was either passing or shooting. That's basically what there was. The play with the stick fake, right? The Kirk Klett stick fake. And literally they would still fall for it. I would laugh in certain instances where I'd score a goal and be like, how are we still scoring with this play? And so I just think that Jay made things made lacrosse very simple and very basic, and we stuck to it. And it worked. And there were other things where it was kind of funny, where he'd call myself dodging behind the net. He'd go 2-4-6, and all of a sudden that became a play, which is hilarious because it's like, Jay, I think I'm just dodging to the net and we're trying to score. But it's another example of just him keeping it super simple. And along with trusting his team, I think he was really good at allowing the leaders of the team to run the team. Obviously, he was the person that was going to make the call, but he did enable us to really build that foundation amongst all of us, which I think truly helped at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. 2-4-6. We still work on that. We still run whiz, and we still run gate.
Great.
But yeah, it's the same stuff. Still works. Austin Winter knows he was running the same stuff, and Coach Jay in there. So, all right, Austin, you're up, buddy.
Yeah, first I'd like to say I did grow up with some Coach Jay isms because my dad did coach for him. So, things like recognizing how you can give back to the game and how much you get out of it, respect it. After he coached all of us, he went back and coached the second grade at Mountain Lakes for 7-8 years. Matt knows he was one of those kids as well that he got to coach. So, just give back to the game. That's something that my dad instilled with me, and he got that from Coach Jay. But my favorite Coach Fed memories, obviously you can always come to things when you're doing conditioning in Davis Gym, and he'll say things, go as hard as you can for as long as you can, or you'll pass out before you die, things like that. That always comes to mind right away. We still say that to each other when I talk to my other teammates. How much fun you made room picks on away games, like that was a blast. Or what did we ride like that week? These things are nasty, like things like that. They're very monotonous things, but you made it a lot of fun. And that's definitely appreciated when you look back. But really, to me, the most special memory that really sticks out to me was actually after my last game ever at Bucknell. We just lost in the Patriot League semis down in the locker room in Mikey Stadium. I knew it was my last game. My body hurt from all the years I put into it, all the surgeries I had. So I knew I wasn't going to try to go to the MLL or anything. My body was shot. And I just remember you coming up to me, talking to me, just like mentioning some things that we talked about on my recruiting trip. And, it's really, I can't recall the specifics, but I just have such a visualization of you and I just sitting there head to head. It's just one of those really special moments that we got to share at the end of everything, kind of just everything came rushing back all 4 years. So it was just a really special moment to end my career. And I really appreciate that.
That's awesome. Thanks guys for all that. Austin, I remember what we talked about, and it was something along the lines, when you were a freshman, you would always come out early to practice, and you had already mentioned that on this Zoom call. And I said, listen, you're a freshman, you're bright-eyed, you got a lot of energy still. I'm going to count on you to never lose this passion, to always come out to practice early, to always stay late, to always have fun playing the sport. And I asked you to promise me that you would do that, and you did as a freshman. And then I think we kind of rehashed that same discussion, and I said thank you for keeping that type of passion and still being a kid, but just playing a game for 4 years. So yeah, I remember that as well. Good stuff, gentlemen. Real good stuff. If we could go back, if you guys could go back and do one thing differently, either on the field or in the classroom, what would that be? And I'm going to go random here. We'll go right to Chris Cara on this
one. Fed, you're going to love this one. You could probably guess it. I would run more.
Yeah.
We had many run-ins, you and I, about my running capacity or ability. And I just look back, like now you would laugh. I could easily do these runs, like very seamlessly, but you could see I'm a lot slimmer. So that's probably why. So I
mentioned 340 anymore.
No, I haven't touched a bench in years. But yeah, I mean, I look back and just not even just myself. I think it's our team. We were able to, I think it's that trust that we built with Jay, but also I think it hurt us at the end where we lost, I forget how many 1-goal games. It was probably 6. And it was, we could never beat Army. We beat Army my freshman year, and then we lost every single time. And that was conditioning. And I think a lot of it is just like, if I could go back, I would definitely change that part of my game, where maybe not to the extreme of where you have some of the kids on your team running, but probably a middle ground where I'd have a little bit more conditioning so that I wouldn't get tired. And I didn't really get tired, but I think our entire team collectively did. And that was something that I literally regret to this day, because we were better than all of those teams and we should have never lost. And we could have made a big impact in the tournament, but we didn't get the chance.
Right on. All right, let's go to Stansik.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Fed, you got on me about this a couple points in my career. I probably would have hit the dining hall a little bit harder if Chris was hitting the treadmill a little bit harder. I was about 175, 185 when I was playing. I'm like 215 now, so I eventually figured something out. I think it's mostly pizza and ice cream at this point. But I think if I would have been a little bit bigger in my playing days, I probably would have been a little bit of a better player. But like you said, with as much running and stuff as we do, it's also hard to put weight on when that's going on. So, yeah, I don't know. A little bit more size, but easier said than done, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. All right, Austin Winter.
First of all, I'd say my biggest regret is I didn't take advantage of the Bucknell Golf Course student rate nearly as much as I should have.
Amen, man.
That was my biggest one. So I'll start with that one. But really, on the field, I still remember every single loss we have. I missed one against Duke, OT senior, on 10 seconds left to win the game. I still visualize beating Mike Manley underneath and just faking the goalie low and just missing highs. Still wake up to that one. But yeah, I'm with a mix between Chris and Paul on this one. I've never been a big weight room guy, so I'm not benching 340, and I'm not really the fastest guy either. I'm just a guy with good stick skills and knows the game and knows how to use his body. So yeah, I wish I kind of took advantage of both of those things. I didn't take advantage nearly as much of the resources that Bucknell offers. I did take advantage of of Andre. I took a lot of advantage of our trainer. He was great to me. I miss cold tubs every single day. My body feels it, but yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to Andre. He kept me alive for 4 years.
Good stuff. I remember that game against Duke. We did lose in overtime, and it was interesting because Duke went on to win the net. This was the first game of the year. It was down in Atlanta, Georgia, at a neutral site. It snowed as we were flying down and landing. The first snow Atlanta had in like 3 or 4 years. And we had such an amazing game. They were ranked. What do you think they were ranked, Austin? Between 1 and 4 or something like that?
Yeah, they were definitely top 5. And yeah, they won in the same exact fashion that they won the national title. So that's what was so frustrating. I still see it to this day, and I work with some Dukies, and yeah, it's tough.
It really made me sick because that obviously would have been such a huge program win to start the season, and we lost. Their long stick midi came down and I think scored off the faceoff within 10 seconds of the overtime, and then they won the national championship game in overtime, and the same long stick midi came down on the faceoff and scored 10 seconds into the game. And it just like was an awful memory. Like, it's just so ironic how that all worked out. But yeah, that was a great game. And you had such a great game, Austin. It's just amazing how, like Sussman mentioned earlier, you guys think of the one play. First of all, you made a great move. I think we called timeout. You had it in the corner. You came all the way from the corner with no angle, and you actually got above the goal line extended, and you have like an 8-foot wingspan, and you wrap the ball around, and I have no idea how it didn't go in. I think it hit the pipe, and that would have been pandemonium, but instead it ended up being a nightmare, and that's not anything you could really second guess. So good stuff. And then Suss, what about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always, being a goalie, obviously you can impact every goal, that goes in. So, there's always things that I think about. There's the Army goal that went in under my stick that led to them, tying us for co-champion that year, not having us make it to the championship our senior year, or make it to the national tournament our senior year. But, mine's more kind of off the field. The one thing, I would change for sure and do differently is, we had a really close senior class my senior year, and Chris knows that, having played with us, and it was a bunch of characters. I mean, every one of us was different, and a different player, but we were a really good cohesive unit, and really loved each other, to be honest with you, and we still do to this day. We still keep very close in contact. I think what happened that year, and I know you recall this, Fed, is one of the one of our brothers on the team, got into a little bit of trouble, right? And it was a freak thing that happened, and nobody could have ever expected it, and it could have happened to anyone. And my regret always has been that as the captain of the team, your responsibility for the rest of your teammates and keeping them together, and through good times and bad times. And I always think about that situation with who continues to be one of my best friends, was in my wedding. There should have been something I could have done to prevent that accident and that situation from happening if I was just by his side, and looking out for him a little bit more, just like, we always looked out for each other. So, not to get too dark, but it's something that keeps me up at night, just knowing what he went through, and how he changed, and everyone's doing great, thankfully. But it's something that I'll always remember, and something that, with my kids and with, the people that I work with, I think about, the good times and the bad times, and when things aren't going so well, just being that more present and being around them, and being a support system for them, I think is as important as anything that you can do on the field, especially longer term.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, life is so fragile, and, every single decision we make, and there's thousands of them in a day, they all count. And, if it's going the wrong way, having that support system there is really important. And it's ironic because you guys were such a tight group of guys, but you just never know. I thought you were going to mention, Suss, that your biggest regret was me scoring on you when I warmed you up. And you tried.
That happened once a week.
Yeah, no, you tried to go a whole warm up without giving up a goal, and Matty B over there on the top of my screen is laughing because he's never seen me warm up a goalie, but I had to warm up Suss every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't easy to score on him. I'd have to move in closer and closer and closer.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger regrets too, for sure. That should never happen.
That'll happen. Coach J-ism. That'll happen. All right, I think Matty B, you're going to ask the next question.
All right. What advice do you have about networking and finding the right job after you graduate from Bucknell?
All right. Well, this is kind of like Paul Stansik's, one of his specialties. So,
oh man,
why don't you start with this, man? You could do a good job with this one.
Yeah, I mean, the first advice is do it. Like, don't be afraid to have conversations with folks that are in areas that you even just think you might be interested in, especially if they're an alumni or you got a connection to them. But do it in the right way. And so I think if you're being polite to people, if you're recognizing that they're busy, if you're respecting their time, and even make sure that you have something to give in that conversation. So, I like the Mark Twain quote that the man who doesn't read has no advantage over the man that can't read. And there have been people working in every industry and every type of company and every situation for hundreds of years that have written down what it's like to be in there. I really appreciate it when people who speak with me, whether it's about private equity or, building great cultures or great leadership teams or whatever, if they have even a bit of a perspective going into the conversation and they want to ask about that instead of just the open-ended, tell me about what you do, tell me how I can get a job here, gimme. So recognize that it's a two-way street. Definitely do it early, do it often, but try to do some kind of independent on your own learning about the area. It also just leads to a better, more fun conversation than just grilling someone about what they do every day. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
It's awesome. Chris.
Yeah, so I would say to talk to as many people as possible. To Paul's point, you definitely have to lead with something in terms of like what you can provide. I think getting a variety of opinions is going to help, because you're 20 years old, 22 years old. You don't know what you want to do at that point in your life, so you're going to figure it out over time. I certainly didn't know what I wanted to do when I came out of school, and over time you just end up, figuring it out. But it's also networking and really building that pool of people that you can go to for mentorship. So I think that, any one of us on the phone would be happy to talk to you, or any of the teammates on the Bucknell lacrosse team, because we're here to support you and help you grow, because it's a network of people that we care about. So I would say that definitely use us as resources, but continue to just, you'll figure it out. I promise you that. It might not be today or tomorrow, but it will be at some point.
Yep. Austin.
Yeah, just along their lines, networking doesn't sleep, so just keep pushing. What's the worst someone's going to say to you? No, so, oh well, on to the next one. You're going to hear a lot of no's in your life. I'm sure, Coach Fed is telling you, no, don't shoot all the time. So you're probably used to it. But yeah, take advantage of Bucknell's huge alumni network. The lacrosse network is great. Lacrosse itself is a networking tool. I say to people, it's often 6 degrees of separation, but in the lacrosse world, it feels like 2. Everyone knows somebody who knows this coach, who knows this player. We all know each other. Like, I got my current job actually through a Mountain Lakes alum who played at Maryland. I kept in touch with him throughout the years, similar how, you and I played Hoboken League last year, something like that, So just take advantage of the people build your Rolodex, and, what's the worst thing to say? No? Oh, well.
That's right. Well, I do tell Matt to shoot more in practice, so he doesn't have to worry about that now.
Does he have the green light?
He's got the green light. He needs to shoot.
All right, we need a green light.
All right, Suss, bring it
Yeah, Fed, you know this, but I just finally hired our first Bucknell lacrosse alum. Reed Malice started 3 weeks ago. So really happy to have him. To you guys, to everyone's point on the call, it's a very tight network, Bucknell lacrosse specifically. We all want to help each other. If we can, we will, absolutely. And, lacrosse is a general network, and it's really tight. And, like I said, I've been dying to hire a Bucknell lacrosse player for a long time, and I know 10 other guys that are feeling the same way. So, I think tap into that as much as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. What do we got next here, gentlemen? Let's go with I'm going to go right to the last question here. Obviously, you guys follow the program. What's your opinion of the state of Bison lacrosse now? And what advice would you give me, if need be, moving forward? So we could start with Stansik here.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to come back and see you guys, I think it was last year, and talk to some of the coaches and talk to some of the team, and give a little bit of a speech to I think it was the Student Athletic Congress, where my laptop shut down in the middle of my speech. So that's a story for another day. I liked what I saw. I think in terms of advice for you going forward, I think you guys have done a great job understanding the types of lacrosse players that are going to make a successful program, and the holes that you have in the roster today, and how to go to the recruiting camps and figure out, what skills do we need on the team for the next 4 years. I think the advice is also just keep doing what you're doing, which is not just recruiting for skills, but recruiting for character, and trying to find the right type of person and not just the right type of player that's gonna, do all the right stuff and not get in trouble and be a good student, but also create the community of players and leaders on the team that leads to the stories that we're talking about on this call today. Like, all of us are so tight with the guys in our class, guys from our teams, because we all had similar values, and you guys look for those values in the recruiting process. So honestly, my advice, keep doing what you're doing, because it leads to something special. It leads to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It is a big priority for us. Our team chemistry, we like to think it's as good as it can possibly get. not only amongst the teams at Bucknell, but even just the other teams across the country. I think our team is very tightly knit, and a big part of that is the personalities and the families, frankly, that we recruit. And Matt Barkauskas obviously is one of those guys right now, and that is something that we will continue to do. Let's go over to Cara for that.
So I think you have one of the hardest jobs in Division I lacrosse, given the scholarship situation. So I admire how you can continue to raise up the team. I mean, I look at the players now and I'm like, I don't even know if I would be playing today. And I really believe that. I think that the skills of the team, of the players now, it's ridiculous. So I admire like how much challenge that you have going into every single year, knowing and for whatever reason or somehow you continue to fight and continue to be a top 20 team, which is unbelievable. So advice, I mean, the one thing I would say is I think it's a challenge. It's maybe get a little scrappier. I feel like the Bucknell that I knew versus the Bucknell it is today is a little different. It's a little more finesse. It's a little more skill. I love the scrappiness. Maybe that's the Long Island in me, but I would love to see a little bit more grit. But, you know, the places that you have to recruit because of your limitations and scholarships, I think it's where you're going. But I would definitely love to see that kid from like middle of nowhere that just played football. Like think about Tex, right? Like somebody like that who can just like beat somebody up at any point.
You meant to say the Wykander brothers.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's another good example. But that would be my advice.
Too funny, man, but it's true, man. We got to be more scrappy. So I can use that with my team now. Thanks. That's excellent fuel for the fire. You hear that, Matty B?
Oh yeah, yes I do.
All right, buddy. Yeah, we talked about that last year. All right, Austin Winter, go ahead, my man.
Yeah, I think the program's in a great place. I continue to follow it all the time. It's been helpful that I have two younger brothers who played lacrosse in college as well. My middle brother is still out there recruiting. He's an assistant coach at Muhlenberg. So yeah, I'm still pretty involved. I know what's going on, and I just love my best friends and former teammates getting on the horn every Bucknell game and just giving the play-by-plays on what's going on, because we still follow very closely. I will say, just keep that strength of schedule up. Kids want to play against the best, and you know, with lacrosse being the fastest growing sport on the high school level, and you know, Division I not really keeping pace with that growth, I think there's a lot of talent out there, and like Chris said, they're in weird places. So yeah, go get the blue collar bison back. You know, when we do joke that when you lose, it was a little bit of a white collar effort. So definitely for that. And yeah, my advice for you is keep doing what you're doing. You're great at X's and O's. Brilliant. Actually, I learned so much from you playing, and I was on the other side. But just, you know, understand in the shot clock era that it's tough to score. You need to score goals, and you need to score scrappy goals. It's tough to score 10 6-on-6 goals a game. Yeah. So yeah, get those easy, cheap goals. Get the transition, speed it up, quicker rides or quicker clears, things like that. You know, get the cheap goals, and that comes with, you know, being blue collar. So
yeah, thank you. Suss?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is more of an echo of Chris's point earlier. I mean, I'm mesmerized what you're able to do with, you know, with the lack of scholarships and the lack of funding, you know, frankly, that you're afforded to build your team. You know, even in the Patriot League now, you know, schools like Colgate and some of your competition they're paying, you know, they're giving scholarships. It's hard to compete. You know, if you're recruiting in the same pie, you know, it's hard to get somebody to come to Bucknell and pay full ride when they're getting money at Colgate or a school like that. So the fact that you're competitive, not only competitive, but beating these teams year in and year out is a testament to what you're doing and, you know, the type of players that you're bringing in. And I have a conversation with my friend or with my class and my dad about this all the time. It's you know, you're starting from behind, yet you're able to come out ahead, you know, most years. So kudos to you guys for doing that. You're obviously building a very cohesive unit. You're getting the right players. Chemistry is everything. I'm also surprised at how it just seems year in and year out. Even when I come to visit Bucknell, it's the same story. there's no team that is as tight as a Bucknell lacrosse team. It just doesn't exist other places. And so it's very special. I don't know if it's in the water or in the Susquehanna River. I don't know why it turns out, but I assume most of the credit is to the coaching staff and the recruitment that you guys do, and just picking the right pieces of the puzzle. One thing you could do better is you need to get more athletes like Brian Treacher, coming out and, Jets, possible NFL football players and slap a long stick long stick in their hand and let them run around. That's what we need more of at Bucknell.
That's right. Man, you just made Treacher's night. I tell you what, he's going to listen to this podcast Zoom thing and rewind it over and over and over again. So Treacher, that's a good shout out to you, brother.
NFL caliber athlete, baby.
One of the best long stick middies Bucknell's ever had. And so Todd, are we out of time here or what's?
Why don't you ask that last question and have him answer it real quick?
Okay. I think I want to ask the one about what their most memorable Bucknell lacrosse moment was, or in the program. So let's do that. Let's start with Chris Cara.
I'll be quick. Navy, #2 in the country, beat them in overtime. And it was in the snow. I still have the same picture. I forget who took that picture, but I remember Steve Case's dad running over the bleachers, tripping on his face, pile on. That was the best game that we played. And I think we should have beat them by more, but we still beat them. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I remember that day. It was in the snow on and off. I got pictures all over my office from that day. And I think you fed Silent P in overtime, and it was a walk-off goal. It was beautiful. Let's go Stansik.
Yeah, I mean, good wins. The Navy win was awesome. I still remember that picture, Chris. I think I have it in my apartment somewhere. Beating Maryland when they were #1. I think the thing that stands out for me was just like the 6 a.m. lifts, right? And the entire campus was asleep. We showed up. Everyone's suited up. You're there with your brothers, and you're there to go to work. I miss that. I got to drag my ass out of bed to go to the gym now, and it's just not the same energy. I wish I could get that back. So cherish that while you got it.
We're still doing it, man. We're still doing it. Suss.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a lot of memories from that 2001 season, the first national tourney team. That senior class that we had was amazing. My best memory is, the night before, or I would say all surrounding the UNC game, which was the opening game of the season. We'd had a good year the year before. We returned a lot of really good players, and going into the season, we wanted to make a statement. And I don't know if you remember this, Fed, but I think that game was actually almost canceled. There was I
remember like it was yesterday.
There was a really bad snowstorm in Baltimore, and I don't remember if it was the next morning or it was the night before, but all of a sudden we found out pretty late that we could actually have the game. And we ended up showing up, I think probably around 40 minutes before game time down to Baltimore. I don't know why we were so late. I assume it was because we didn't even know if we were going to play or not. And, we got out of the bus. It was cold. We got out on the field. I think on average, each one of us got on the field probably around 20 minutes before the game time. I took probably 5 or 6 shots, and UNC was a really good team that year. Like they were top 5, top 6 team, or somewhere around there, and we just came out and destroyed them. I mean, without any warm up, without any any time to even think about what was about to happen. We ended up beating them 7-3, and it really kind of like started off that national tournament season. And I'll never forget it because it kind of put us on the map that year, and was probably the first of many wins to come for the program against the ACC. But I think that was probably at the time the most notable win we had ever had, and it was a great season and just a really, really awesome day.
Yeah, I tell you what, I do remember like it was yesterday, and that was the beginning, I think, of our success for the next 19 years leading up to today, because we did get over the hump that day, and we came in with a chip on our shoulder, and we knew we were going to win. I'll never forget Treacher saying, what was he saying? Sanki? Like he was like, he was always like getting pumped up to take out Sankey that day. He was like an All-American, first team All-American.
0 points.
0 points. He shut him out. And what happened was, the reason why we were late that day is Coach Jay was still the head coach, and we had a breakfast planned at Perkins in Selinsgrove, and we did not go the night before. Our game was a 10 a.m. start time at Loyola College, a neutral site. North Carolina had gotten there the night before with their 60 guys. We went to Perkins for breakfast at 6 in Selinsgrove, and they didn't realize we were coming, or something was messed up, and they didn't have any food ready for us. So we had to wait all the way till 7:30. We left Selinsgrove at 7:30, or maybe even 8 o'clock. We didn't get to Loyola until 9:30, and their whole team's warming up. We can't start at 10:15 or 10:30 because there's like 3 games at Loyola that day. No one had AstroTurf in 2001. So there was like a triple header, quadruple header, and our game was at 10. So it had to start at 10. And so we just sent out goalies one at a time. I had to set up the camera in the stands and find a parent to videotape and get the extension cord and warm up the goalies. And our guys came out one at a time, and we faced off, and some of our guys were still coming out of the locker room, and we literally kicked their butt, something like 10-4, something ridiculous. And we ended up having a great year. So that was amazing. Yeah, Austin.
My most memorable lacrosse experience was actually one of my last. It was senior day. My last time ever playing at Christie. We were playing Colgate. Game went to overtime. I've been playing lacrosse since I was in 2nd grade. That's when my mom was battling cancer for the first time. She's cancer-free, so we're all good. But I always just said I wanted to celebrate a game-winning goal with her. I didn't get to do it until my last game ever playing against Colgate at Christie. It's amazing it took that long, but I'm happy it happened. And I took off to the stands and ran up there and celebrated by hugging her. And it's a moment we will get to share forever together, and it's really special. So.
I knew you were going to say that one, Austin, and I didn't know that about your mom and that promise you had to your mom about how you were going to run into the stands and hug her when you scored your game-winning goal, and you thought that might have been in 3rd grade or 8th grade, and for it to be in your last game, potentially last game ever, because what people don't understand about that game, while it was not a playoff game, Colgate and us were tied for the last playoff spot. So whoever won was going to the Patriot League playoffs, and whoever lost was going home for the year. So in essence, it was a playoff game. It was a play-in game. And so you were literally on the verge of going your entire career of not being able to accomplish that goal and that promise that you made to your mom, and for you to score that game-winning goal in overtime and then literally sprint. And it's all on videotape, by the way. And we got all those games on cloud now, so you guys can get those games.
That's awesome.
You're running up into the stands, hugging your mom, and everyone's trying to celebrate with you, and you're literally running away from them into the stands. I will never forget that moment. So I'm glad that you had an opportunity to share that with the world today. So kudos to you and your mom, and I'm so glad that she's doing great. Well, thanks, gentlemen. Todd, I think that's it.
All right. Well, awesome, guys. First of all, Matt, thanks for taking the time out to join us on the call. Glad you're back on campus with your teammates. Stay safe. Have a great semester. And we are going to keep our fingers crossed that we're watching you in competitive games this spring. And I know you'll do great out there at Christie Mathewson Memorial Stadium. So thanks again for being with us. And guys, it's great to see you all. And it's great to see the connectivity that the Bucknell men's lacrosse program has. And you guys all touched on it a little bit throughout the call, but I really think it's a huge testament to Coach Jay and Coach Fed and the way they keep the program together. It's truly a family. You support each other. You support not only each other, but you support the current kids in the program, and that's really important. And I'm glad, Justin, you got your little one up there so they can hear this. So again, guys, thanks for taking the time out. Wish you guys all well. And for those of you that joined and watch from home, thanks for doing so, and go Bison.